The circle that I ran in when I was married looked one way. The circle that I ran in when I was newly divorced looked one way. And now with the communities that I'm a part of today, they look very different. And I've had to adjust and reframe certain friendships with people in my life because based on where I'm at, and honestly, based on how awakened I am spiritually, I am out of alignment with those other communities. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Power in the Pause podcast. As a reminder, do not forget to hit subscribe so that you do not miss a single episode because I release one every single week. And you would do me such an honor if you would please leave a 5-star rating and even better, a review so that more people can find this podcast. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode where I am joined by my dear friend, Nikki T. Hello, Nikki. How are you?
I'm doing great, Wendy. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm so happy that you are here. You guys, Nikki and I go back, our friendship goes back a couple of years, and I'm really excited to talk to her today because we both have sort of been along this parallel path, one that we're both navigating in similar fashions, but also, putting our own special sauce into the mix of it. But what we're going to talk about today is something very near and dear to both her heart and mine, and that is navigating life's forced pauses and how it is that she has found resilience, spirituality, and purpose amidst any and all adversity that has come her way. And what Nikki is going to share with you guys today is some of her transformative experiences. And just to give you guys a sneak peek, it's going to be from going from facing life-altering health challenges at a very young age to ending her ballet career and then transitioning through a divorce. And through each one of these particular experiences, she has used them as a way to discover more about herself, to spiritually awaken her highest and best, and ultimately leading into the creation of her business, MavenHeart. And so Nikki is the founder of MavenHeart, which is a collective community and movement dedicated to empowering 40+ women to reclaim their narratives and live life on their own terms. And I love this particular movement that Nikki is creating because she's really looking to create a cultural shift, challenging many of these outdated norms that have long dictated the way that women live, the way that women age, as well as perceive ourselves, and instead to focus on a sisterhood where courage, new interests, and bold aspirations are nurtured. As I said previously, Nikki is a former professional ballet dancer, which I think is so amazing about you, to a leading authority on breaking free from the diet culture. And MavenHeart, under her stewardship, has really become the sanctuary for women over 40 who seek to embrace their health, wellness, beauty, fashion, and a life filled with adventure and travel. I mean, who doesn't want that? So, Nikki, welcome to the podcast. I adore you, and I'm so incredibly grateful that you are here today to share your story, to share your passion behind MavenHeart. And so as we dive into today's episode, I would really love for you to share with our audience, using your own words, how it is that these pivotal moments that I've shared with our audience today has really led you to pause, and particularly, how you have seen those pauses benefit you starting at such a young age.
Yeah, well, first, I want to thank you for having me on your show, because when you were talking about the pause, and I was like, yeah, I think I've been really forced to pause. There was no option in these pauses in my life. Yes, I've had smaller pauses, but yeah, the first one really came when I was 17 years old. I was very active in the ballet company at that age. And just, at 13, I declared to my parents that I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer. So I was very in it. And I woke up one morning, I was actually at my brother's house. We were supposed to go to New York City to get costumes made for this piece that we were in. So I live in New Jersey. And I got up and I could not move my body. I mean, like I couldn't even reach to the phone. This is back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, right? Couldn't even pick up the phone to call my dance teacher and say, I can't go. And there was another thing, like they were very disciplined in the sense of like, you didn't call unless you were on death's bed, right? So, and I really was. I, as a 17-year-old, could not get up. I couldn't move my joints. Every ounce of my body ached. I wound up being in the hospital 3 days later. The doctors were like, what is going on? We don't have no idea what is really happening. I wound up in Children's Hospital, and they still didn't find out what was wrong until months later. But what is interesting is while I was there, I look back on this whole experience with kind of laughter and kind of disassociated from it, because I had such a bonding experience with my mom, because she was taking me to the hospital, and I had two older brothers and older sister. My dad at the same time was in another hospital getting his hip done. So like she had a lot going on, right? So, but the doctors basically told me that I wouldn't be able to see because I had such bad conjunctivitis, and I probably wouldn't be able to walk. So 9 months later, they did figure out what I have. I have a type of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis that is flared on by stress. But 9 months later, I was at Radford University dancing on scholarship in the dance department. So what is interesting is later on in my life, talking to coaches, one of them suggested that this was kind of a forced pause. It was my way of escaping the environment that I was in because it was not healthy, right? And for my body to kind of be like, hold up, we're not doing this, right? And it allowed me to, in essence, escape what I was dealing with as a teenager in this ballet world, right? And then again, it was like, but there was a miracle. Like I couldn't squeeze toothpaste out. I had to have somebody walk me to the bathroom. I couldn't do anything myself. My mom was telling people that would come in and see me, they're like, don't cry. Like she didn't know. I mean, I think she thought I was going to die. But so that was definitely the first forced pause that, as I look back, I always kind of thought of humorous because we had some humorous things going on with my mom. But as I now a more aware adult, I'm like, wow, I was really disassociated from that whole experience, right? But when that happened, I think it didn't affect me until way later on in life, where I was diving into the dynamics of like, and I love that you love that I was a ballet dancer, and I loved that I was a ballet dancer, but there's a whole other ugly side that I had not uncovered personally until recently. The trauma that goes on, the way you're taught how to eat, the way you're taught about how to look at your body, the outside validation that you're constantly looking for. So beautiful career, loved it, but there was also a dark side to that. But if I hadn't gone through that, then I wouldn't have been set up for other things in my life, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward, after I ended my ballet career, I was actually dancing a lead role at Pennsylvania Ballet. And Pennsylvania Ballet has been around for years. It's a very well-known ballet company in Pennsylvania. And I had injured my foot dancing with the director of the company, and I tweaked it. So when I was doing this performance, I had that attached, but I also came out on the wrong cue. So this is like a major no-no in the ballet world. You know your cues, right? I definitely played it off. It was one of those pieces where it was a modern piece where I could play it off. But for me, walking off stage when I finished that, there was a level of shame and like, did you do that? Like this was the pivotal point in my ballet career. Like I could have joined the company. I could, you know what I mean? There's so many things I could have. And for me, it was a forced pause in the sense of like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want, and then I shifted into physical therapy. So that was definitely a forced shift. Going through physical therapy was awesome. Loved it. I loved every career that I've ever had. And I can't wait to see how it progresses forward because it's just going to be awesome. But being married and choosing the person that I decided to spend 20 some years with, looking back again, it was very obvious who I was being to attract that person. Again, it was one of those experiences for me, almost like being sick at 17. It's like I was married and I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being the wife. I thought I was being the committed partner, and all the aspects that we're taught as children, right? And depending if you grew up, like I grew up Catholic, so it was very much ingrained that you don't get divorced, right? Unless it's really bad. And even then, sometimes you say.
Right.
So I know for me, being in the relationship that I was in, it was eye-opening because I didn't realize what was going on. And when I did become aware, it was like, I always describe it as waking up from a dream and into a nightmare. And then once I realized what was actually happening, I sunk down to rock bottom. And that was definitely a forced pause. Like it was very illuminating. But grateful that I went through that because there was this element of spirituality that had woken up in me. Like I said, grew up Catholic, but I did not practice. But this whole, I can't even describe it. I know we've had conversations about it, but it's just this spiritual journey that it's like, if you talk to people about it, they're kind of like, really? Like, what is that? But there's this element of belief in it and the journey that you go through. So my whole spiritual awakening was so much more in depth and so much more emotional, so much more than the connection I had growing up being Catholic. So all those points in my life that were kind of forced on me, and I used forced because it was have you ever heard the expression, God will knock softly.
Yes.
And then if you don't hear, they
yes.
they pound you down. If not, their Mack truck comes in and just takes you out, right? Yes. So those were Mack truck experiences. But again, I'm grateful for all those experiences because I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. If I had not experienced what I experienced in the ballet world, I would not be teaching people how to lose weight in the healthiest way that they can, right? And also a very sane way, right? Mentality-wise, being forced out of the ballet world, right? Because that was my whole thing. My whole world revolved around ballet. I mean, to the point where I wouldn't wear open-toed shoes because I was afraid somebody was going to fall on my feet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was pretty ingrained. But again, everything that I've gone through has led me up to be the coach that I am. And MavenHeart is a perfect example of someone who is looking for more, right? Looking for that next chapter. For me, I turned 50 in the summer and I'm going through this divorce, going out on my own. And it's really it is available to you. Don't feel like you have to be complacent or satisfied with where you're at. You really can take those next steps and move forward in whatever you desire.
Yeah. And I mean, your stories are so incredibly powerful. And, what I'm also hearing you say is really each one has sort of built upon the next, where it's almost like, and I talk about this a lot too, it's like the speed at which you learn the lessons are coming faster and faster. While they may not still feel, fast enough, why didn't I learn this 2 years ago? Why didn't I learn this 10 years ago? The acceleration at which you start seeing the lessons, the ways in which you are awakening, right? What I'm also hearing is that it's not that there's judgment in it. It's, I'm so grateful that this has already happened for me and that I now know not to make this mistake. And I also get to teach this. I also get to share this with people so that I can help other people avoid the pitfalls that I went through, or to help them recognize those moments that we tend to ignore, right? Those signs from the universe. And so what I'm hearing is that a lot of what you've learned is resilience. And that it's really helped you to further solidify your purpose and how it is that you serve. And so what would you say are a couple of those highlights of those key lessons that you learned, that you now teach, and that you really embed into the foundation of your communities?
Great question. And I also want to add to, before I answer that, is
yes,
I don't think the lessons ever stop.
No, right? They don't.
They don't. Yeah. And I have to be honest, the past, I would say 3 months, I've really been in it. Right. So, and I almost feel like there's a thought that keeps circulating in my head, the universe is just punking me. Right. I know the universe is not punking me. There's a lesson to be learned. And I actually think I discovered it right before our call, which is awesome, but for this interview. But I want to offer, there's never an arrival. Right? You level up, but I still think there's always going to be growth. There's always going to be something new to discover about yourself that levels you up to make you be the better version of you so you can be better to other people, right? So some of the things that I definitely teach in my clientele is, I'm an expert on, if you want to lose weight for the last time, I am your girl. Come call me. because it's not about the food. It's not about the workout. It's what I'm finding is coaching hundreds of women on how to lose weight, thousands now, but it's understanding that it's not about that number that you want. It's about the identity, that person that you want to be living in that body, right? And who you're being. So with MavenHeart, I really made this shift in, yes, I'm still helping people live in the body they want to live in, whether that's weight loss or whether that's someone who's already got the body that they want, but they're in this like hamster wheel of like, I got to keep up. I got to keep, like obsession about like, if I even slip one day, it's going to go all to crap. But also stepping into that next identity of like, it doesn't matter where you are in life, whether it's you want a new career, you want a new relationship, you want a better relationship. Again, we all want these things because we want to feel something, right? We want to feel a certain way. And we think by having that, we're going to get the feeling. So one of the biggest things I teach my clients is like, you have all that now. Like it's embodied in your body already. It's just peeling off the layers of onion or however you want to look at it. Like if you're like the lump of clay and you're designing the beautiful goddess statue that you are, like it's all inside of you. And it's really just discovering and having conversations where we're diving into like what from your past are you bringing forward, right? What projections are you making about your future and how that all relates? We don't spend enough time in the now, right? In the pause, right? In the moments of silence between all those crazy thoughts that we have. Like there's magic between those thoughts. And just embracing this knowledge. I know for me, because I didn't think like this 20 years ago, right? Like to have this knowledge, it just blows my mind because I think 20 years ago, of course, we're younger and we think we know it all. Like, the concepts that I know now, I'm just like, wow, like there's so much more to learn and so much more to do and be more in particular. So MavenHeart really is bringing that element of women who are really looking for more out of life, not because they want to fill some hole that they're not getting or some emotional need, but more in like, for me, it's like my mission is really to ding the universe. I want to make such an impact on women. I don't want any woman to ever feel like they ever have to hate themselves skinny ever again, or be afraid of not stepping out and doing the things that light you up. Like if you want to be a rock star, why are you not on stage? Like, what is it that's holding you back from doing all the things that you say you want to do?
Yeah, I love that. And I think the biggest piece of this too is that we feel stuck in the communities that we've either created or we feel obligated to stay in versus really feeling the empowerment to change the communities that you're choosing to stay in. I mean, and maybe you can relate to this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the circle that I ran in when I was married looked one way. The circle that I ran in when I was newly divorced looked one way. And now with the communities that I'm a part of today, they look very different. And I've had to adjust and reframe certain friendships with people in my life because based on where I'm at, and honestly, based on how awakened I am spiritually, I am out of alignment with those other communities. And so I would love for you to dive a little bit deeper, if you would, about like how it is that your own spiritual transformation and what it is that you've been going through, how that has supported you in your healing and how you also see it transforming the women that you are also supporting.
Yeah, I think for especially women, there's this level of not just staying in your comfort zone, but there's this level of safety that we feel because we were taught that growing up that you need a man to make you feel safe or a partner or whatever. You need to stay within this framework that we've created. You need to look a certain way. You need to have these kind of conversations with your friends, right? And I think there's also this almost a shame element of like, if you're still not friends with your high school friends, like, or people from your past, then there's something like an egotistical thing. Like I had a client who, so a lot of when I coach clients on weight loss, we're not even talking about weight loss. We're talking about, right, all the things that are going on in their life. Right. So this one client, she had this circle of high school friends and she was in her past her 50s. And, I just got the sense of like, she was like just holding on to them because that's what is expected. And I was like, you don't resonate with these conversations anymore, right? Every time you walk in, there's a negative, like you walk out feeling negative about yourself or about something. And I think, again, as women, we're nurturers. We want to not make anybody's feelings hurt. But there is this element of when you start learning these lessons, when you start leveling up and awakening and stepping into whatever spirituality looks like for you, you're not going to have the same conversations. Like, so I talk about it with people that go through my weight loss program. I said at some point, those dieter conversations that you have sitting around the table where it's like, oh, what did you eat? What diet are you on? Did you work out today? Like all these, and body shaming and all that stuff. Those conversations will feel like nails on a chalkboard at some point.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to, you've leveled up, you've moved. And it's not to put them down, and it's not to say you're above them. It's just, you just think differently, right? It's a lateral move if you want to look at it that way. But there is this structure, I think, that is put on us that says you have to stay in this little box. And if you decide to get out, and then there's that whole, like, you decide to take that step out and your friends are like, no. Have you ever heard of the crab effect?
No, what is that?
Okay. So the crab effect is you put crabs in a pot.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them. One of them will try to start climbing out. The others will pull the sucker back down. So none of the crabs can escape. Now, if they were smart, they would just chain up and everybody could climb out, right? I mean, they could really, yeah. So this is, look it up. It's called the crab effect. But it is very similar. When you try to step out of that circle, you're going to feel really uncomfortable, right? Primitive brain tells you you're leaving the tribe, you're going to be either shunned or you're going to die, right? And both of those are not good. So there's this element that keeps pulling us back from our past as far as primitive brain, right? The way we think keeps pulling us back into this circle of people. Right. And you keep trying to pull out. And every time you do, you have these conversations and you feel like you're getting sucked in. For me, the perfect example is going home to my family's house, having celebration parties, whatever it is. I clearly see the dynamics of walking into that door. I am now the 8-year-old youngest child of the family, right? So you kind of revert back to the childhood version of yourself. Same thing when you're in these other relationships, these circles of friends. So the question becomes, how do you step out and become the version of the person that you want? And deciding, are you leaving those friends behind? Right. And I don't remember the exact quote, but basically it was like, if they wanted to level up with you, they would. Right. So that you're not leaving them behind. They're choosing not to go with you.
Right.
Right.
I love that reframe.
Yeah. So for anybody who is trying to make a difference in the world, and it doesn't have to be saving third world countries. It could be something as simple as, just making somebody happier. Like when you decide to step out of what's comfortable for you, there's going to be a lot of uncomfortableness, right? And a lot of growth that you're going to experience. But again, on the other side of that is what you want. So you can decide to stay small and stay in these circles and not grow. And that's fine. There's no judgment on my part. But if you're someone who's really yearning to step out and to make an impact in this world, no matter how big the ripple is, you need to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I always say, like, if you are comfortable, you're not growing. That it's really in the discomfort is when you are transforming, and it's when you are transitioning and up-leveling. And, like you said at the beginning of the episode, right? Like, we're always in transformation. We're always growing. I mean, my belief is that we are souls having a human experience, and we're here to keep up-leveling. We're here to keep living our soul's purpose. And that purpose keeps evolving and changing as we keep learning lesson after lesson after lesson, right? I learned one lesson, I learned a lot of lessons from my childhood later in life, but none of those lessons came to be until I was unhappy in my marriage. Then I realized my ex-husband's infidelity. Then I chose to file for divorce. My mother passed away. I changed my business. It's like every lesson that I have experienced in my life has built upon the other. And I also know that had I not had those prior lessons, I wouldn't have been equipped to even overcome the current lesson that I have. And I think that one of the most important parts of any communities that you create, like in MavenHeart, right? Or the communities that I create for my clients, right? That the community experience really, it's about helping, like you said, to like lift each other up, to support each other in these moments of discomfort, and also to share that, you're not alone going through this, right? We are all uncomfortable quite often. And, you and I may be sitting here to other people and people are going, oh, well, you guys have it easy. And it's like, actually, we don't. We have bad days. We have moments where we call our coaches. We have moments where we are on the floor crying and, or having really uncomfortable conversations with the people that we love, or we're questioning decisions that we make, or the universe is smacking us upside the head with lessons. Like Nikki's in communities. I'm in communities, right? So how have you seen or what have you experienced in either, communities that you're a part of, or based on what you've learned, like what you put into your community, like how do you really support those that are going through similar challenges as you, or how do you receive it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being really authentic. So like I'm very authentic with my clients. Because, and it's interesting, as I was listening to you talk, I kept thinking of like, we always talk about Instagram, the highlight reel, right?
Yes.
And there's not too many people doing their low light reels, right? Because again, they're pretty,
I love that.
That ugly cry, the whole 9 yards. I don't know, maybe I'll start doing that. But
I was going to say, I'm like, you may have just struggled with something.
I may have. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because I know for me, like the first thought is like, oh my gosh, like ugly crying. It's just, that's meant to be in private. I'm not saying don't do it. So I don't know if I would post that, but yeah, I think that when you're putting somebody on a pedestal, right? So when you're looking at these people on Instagram or you and I or whatever, like I know for me, the biggest thing, one, the ballet dancer, right? Two, the two TEDx talks, right? That I've done. When people hear that, all of a sudden, I think they put me on this like, oh, right. But I have normal days too. Like I have days where, and they're more often lately because I think I'm making up for not crying as a child in my entire year of being 50. Because, I was taught that emotions were, you either were happy or angry. Like there was no other really emotions. So then you heaven forbid you cried. Like that was definitely off the table. But getting to level up to become a better version of yourself, really like, so I know we've talked about this. So this is my Phoenix necklace. And this is like my touchstone because it just reminds me of where I've been and where I'm going. Right. And like, you have to go through the fire sometimes. Sometimes they're little fires and they're not so horrible. But sometimes they feel like I feel like this has been my journey, especially the past couple of months, is like, could it possibly get any lower? Like every time I think I'm at the bottom, I'm like, okay, maybe there's another layer, right? And I know that eventually it's going to come up. And I really do feel like that's actually going to shift today because of what I discovered earlier in my own journaling. But again, that's the human experience, right? We don't want to go through this. Well, I'll say for me, I don't want to go through this life as a robot. I don't want to just punch in a time clock and wait until death appears, right? To get married, have the kid, like all the checking the boxes. And that's fine if that is your journey, but there is so much more. I mean, as far as we know, we have this one life, right? Maybe we have more, I don't know. But like, I was thinking this the other day, like when, and I'm sure you've heard, when the time comes, when you look back on your life, how do you want to envision it, right? What do you want to say about your life? But for me, it was really like, what regrets? And I don't want to regret anything. There are very few things in my life I regret, but what regrets would I have if I didn't do X, Y, Z? And MavenHeart 100% would be a regret if I was like, no, I'm too scared. I'm too scared to step into that influencer aspect and all the things, right? But I don't want to live my life like that.
Yeah.
So for anybody that is in a community, number one, whatever you're signing up for, whatever you're getting involved in, you show up and get what you came for, right? So whether you're in Wendy's program and you have invested with her, or whether you're invested with me, you come in and you get what you came for. It is not your coach's 100% responsibility to get the results that you want, right? So because when you come in and you are all in, there's no way you can't have a transformation.
Yeah.
Some version of it, right? So coming into communities, it's doing that, but also being authentic, being who you truly really are. And I think this is where coaching is super helpful because there's a lot of superficial crap going on, right? Of like who I am, who I identify as, but there's a whole laundry list lower of like, no, really what your true identity is, you don't feel like you're good enough, right? Or whatever it is. So it's understanding and learning who you are authentically, because then when you're authentic, you can show up as yourself, right? In whatever situation you are in. And there's a knowing of that. But I think too, also when you're in a group with people, when you show up authentically, there's this element of trust that gets built. And if you're in a group and you don't feel like the trust factor is in there, then that's probably not your group, or you're not showing up authentically. Right. So really going into any group or any coaching program, like all in 100% and be authentic, because that's the way you get transformation. That's the way you level up.
Yeah. And that's the way you find your people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You tried.
Yeah. Nikki, I appreciate you so deeply. And I have loved following you over the last couple of years and really just, I do consider you a friend, and I think you have so much to give. And I want to make sure that everybody tuning in knows where to find you. So would you please let everybody know how they can still stay connected or be connected with you?
Yeah, definitely go check out the website. It's MavenHeart.co, C-O at the end. And then I am on social media. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook.
Yes. And all of these links, everybody, will be in the show notes. Again, thank you for being my guest today. And I really love the work that you are doing in this world. You guys definitely check out Nikki and be sure to follow her and stay connected. Okay. So again, thank you all for tuning in. You know that with every single episode of this podcast, I am always seeking to inspire you to find your power in the pause, whether that pause is something that you create or one, as we talked about in today's episode, one that you feel was pushed into your energy field. So stay positive and stay open to what is possible and the lessons that are just rich in moving you forward, up-leveling you, and transforming you. Thank you so much for joining us in today's episode. Don't forget to follow me on social media as well. My handle across every single platform that I'm on, including Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn, and God knows what other platforms are out there now. And also check out the podcast on YouTube if you want to actually watch it. But my handle is Wendy Page Sterling, sending you all so much love and light always. Nikki, thank you for being here as well. And I hope that you all have a beautiful day. Bye, everybody.